cash flow issues in grain supply chains for Australian farmers, which is a very important topic for these farmers. So in Australia, the suicide rate among farmers is about twice as high as for the average population. And to some degree, this is attributed to cash flow problems, the farmers not knowing how they're supposed to pay the salaries and for the goods in the next month. And by using blockchain to make this process smoother and make the payments faster, that can be fantastic. I think back office automation can happen also to some degrees in the banking sector, with settlements potentially happening much quicker and needing less human routine operations to be performed. And the other thing that is that you can also get out of blockchain is that you have reliable data that's more reliable than previously. And so there's a startup from some friends of mine in Sydney who want to bring supply chain financing, invoice financing, to a broader share of the market. Right? So invoice financing, meaning that you can take an invoice, go to the bank and get a loan against this invoice, or sell the invoice to somebody. And for a lot of small companies, this is currently not possible because the volume of the invoice is not big enough, and the checks that are needed by people are too costly for the banks to be interested in doing that. And so I think when we talk about automation in this sense, we also have to realize that yes, some tasks that are currently performed by people may be automated away, but also potentially we can create new business models and processes which increase the overall market dramatically, and there are many opportunities in that regard.
Right, thank you very much, guys. So I would like to open up the discussion towards the broader audience, and I invite you to comment and challenge the different observations that our colleagues shared here. And I look into the audience and I see in the very back there's Gregor raising his arm. So please step up and share your observations.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to say I work in two very huge projects. I'm leading even this on Work 4.0. This means what is the impact on digital transformation on the employees. And what I've learned there is that we as a computer scientists are not able to speak about this human factor. So we need people from other disciplines. So in this project, there are 10 professors, 2 only computer scientists, all the others are from psychology, sociology, from economics, from law, and so on. And I think we need this discussion, this opening of our community to these areas. So this morning we saw in the talk by Ellen this pyramid of values. So we are very good in these functional values, but in all upper layers we have no idea how to realize systems so that people become happy, satisfied, and so on. So what I would like to ask you, why do you think that you are qualified to speak about human factors? You are computer scientists, maybe business informatics people. You have no idea about humans.
How we're qualified to sit here? Because we got invited. So we didn't self-select ourselves. Maybe I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, we at Signavio, we deal with a lot of companies out there applying process management. And what's interesting to me is, I mean, we always look at what are people trying to achieve, what are their goals, what are the challenges. 5-10 years ago, a lot of people were focusing exclusively on the lower part of the pyramid. how can I save cost? How can I streamline things? How can I make things faster? So a lot about operational efficiency and making operations run smoother for the company. What we've seen as a trend in the last 2, 3, 4 years is that a lot more companies are using process management now. What we've seen is actually the upper right corner of Miguel's chart of digital transformation, or both upper parts. So for customer experience and for employee experience, very interesting. We have a lot of customers who optimize processes with the main goal of building a more attractive workplace because it's so competitive to find people. So that they have to make sure that the environment that people work in is attractive, is appealing, that it brings out the best of the people. So this is interesting. I haven't seen this particular piece in research actually, how to increase, let's say, employee happiness, if you will, through designing a process in one way or the other. But it's happening out there in practice. Customer experience is I've seen a couple of things here at the conference as well, and on how do you actually get back to the roots of process management, right? So if we remember where process comes from, it basically puts the customer at the center and trying to work in a way that you achieve the customer's goals or fulfill his needs. That seemed to have gotten lost a little bit in the last 10, 15, 20 years, and the focus was a lot more on the internal things happening within one company. But in the latest survey that we did with our customers, actually 35% of all initiatives are mostly driven by customer experience and improving that. I'll give you an example. Imagine you're a car insurance company. What are your interaction points with a customer today? You have exactly one interaction point with a customer every year, and that is when you send the invoice and tell them actually you just renewed your contract, right? So these nice letters is the only touch point that you have with your customer. What you actually want to provide as an experience is that you want to be there for your customer every day when they enter their car, right? You want to make sure that they understand that when they enter the car and they touch their steering wheel, that you are the safety net for them, right? Whatever happens to you on this particular day, I'm there with you. I'm working with you to keep you mobile, to keep you safe, to lead your life in a way that you want to lead it. This has a heavy impact on how you design your product, your service, and this has a huge impact on processes and the things that you have to do to deliver on that customer experience. So I see good science in there, walking up the pyramid, and in practice I see a lot of optimization towards those things already.
Yeah, let me just kind of add to that. I think you're right. As computer scientists solely, we're probably not so qualified. But there's some good news in the industrial settings, and it's kind of started with Apple Computer and their approach to designing products. And they really, Apple, kind of pioneered a new way of thinking about making products, putting the user first, the consumer in their case. And so there's evolved a method that we call design thinking. And now, at least at IBM, when we endeavor to create a transformation or some technology for a client, one of the first things we're doing is a so-called design thinking workshop. And we really start, and it's so a systematic method of steps that we go through, starting with who are the stakeholders who are going to be using whatever this technology is. And we think in terms, there might be multiple stakeholders, and for each one, systematically, what are they trying to do? What are they thinking? What are their pain points? And what are they feeling? And so there's a strong discipline now of thinking in terms of the user, as the starting point before getting down to, okay, what are the kinds of solutions we're going to provide, and then finally underneath that, what are the kinds of processes that we'll be setting up to support those solutions.
All right, thank you very much. I want to pull it back into the audience. Here's another comment, and please show me your hands so that I can list you up.
Yes, I think that what's happening when you get more computational power is that you start to do more unnecessary things. It was the case before when you try to break the enigma, people calculate by hand, and then suddenly you have a massive computer. Then you said, oh, this computer will solve every calculus that is needed of mankind. And with more and more, we have more graphics, and now we have AI and stuff. So what actually is said that we're starting to the unnecessary things will become more necessary because of the experience. So I totally agree. Actually, what you say, you start to do more things and you have more possibilities. So that is basically what will happen. And also maybe you can start to have new revenue streams from that.
Yes, thank you. I think that's pretty much in line with the point that Hai was trying to raise. So there were more comments here from that side of the audience. The lady and then the gentleman.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the questions before and your comment on the interdisciplinarities of how BPM have to collaborate with the disciplines, because I see a lot in the industries right now that the BPM alone is not really surviving. So we have to join with some other disciplines so that we could give the business value, because right now the companies are facing with not only how to improve the processes, but also how to find a good people, how to really find a good profile, a fitting profile for the qualifications that they are looking for. And that is coming to my first questions about the visions of the academia, how you would like to shape all the syllabus that you are producing right now to fit to the industry needs, because frankly, I have to speak, we are working on digital transformations. We hardly find people who can really do things. Most of the things people are being specialists on some issues, but for some certain point of view in a company and doing digital transformation, you need quite good affinities on the technical, you need understanding on the organizational structures and the people, and you need also to understand processes. And not every studying program provides this all, and you have to be a good project manager. So it's the requirements of the industry is higher than before, and they expect also that once that the students are getting out of the university, they have to work and they have to function. So that is my first question, how the academia has the visions to change or to adjust the syllabus or to fit into the industry needs. My second question is about the human factor in the BPM. I don't think it's just only the questions of how much automation and how much digitalization that we would need. Sometimes we are driven by some factors, especially the demographical structural change. I went to Japan last year and I visited a hotel. There's no a single person. I got the receptions by the robots. I got all my process done via my mobile phone. And because Japan is one of the greatest countries who has the elderly or aging societies, and they don't have much workforce to really respond to the needs of the communities. And that is one of the issues that probably we have to see how the technology could help and until what extent the technology could really deliver. What do you think, in your opinion, until the certain level of service delivery that could be really positive for the society, and for what extent that these kind of technologies we are going to not working anymore. For example, if we see the issues from the film iRobots, for example.
Right, so maybe Hayo was partially referring to educational issues, so maybe you can respond to that, and Ingo was pointing to ethical issues. Maybe you can pick up the second thread of the question.
Good work distribution. So let me indeed try to pick up on the role of that universities may have. I think on the one hand we must be modest. I've been working in industry, I've been in touch with industry, and over the past 20 years, I always get requests, why don't you train people more to do this? Because we need this more, we need that more. And I think what universities can accomplish in the educational program of students is in a sense modest. You cannot prepare people for all the challenges, which are multifaceted, as you were pointing out, a good project manager, somebody who knows from a technical perspective what is going on, the human side to it. You cannot address all these elements. But I do think that there is a fundamental change that needs to be made, and I think you can also observe this in different settings where, for example, in educational programs that I'm aware of, which were traditionally much more focused on a particular type of technology and even the state of the art of that technology, that there is a shift towards helping students assess the impact of these technologies in, for example, in business process settings, where the technology itself is, of course, important and is current, but where there's a complete understanding that once the students will graduate, that there will be new technologies. So, for example, in the curriculum that I'm aware of in Amsterdam, there are courses which relate to digital innovation, where students take on particular technology and look at existing processes or existing business models to think through how these things could be affected by incorporating new types of technologies. And the technology is, of course, the students have to understand that technology, but it's not so much the education on that technology which is the essence of that part. And I myself, I'm in favor of having people think, train them to rethink existing structures or existing processes with knowledge, profound knowledge of new technologies. And I think that is something that is very helpful to prepare them for, I would say, a situation where we are fully aware that the technology stream, new technologies will be evolving all the time. So if you have this mindset that you are trained in changing existing structures because new things happen, I think that is a very important strength of our future students.
Ingo, maybe you want to continue.
Yes, I first would like to address also the first of the questions. So if we want to, solve problems, really, quite often we have to work in an interdisciplinary way. And I probably don't need people from other sciences to help me write a BPM paper. But if we want to, for example, apply blockchain in the food provenance sector, Will raised the point, I think 2 days ago, how do you know that the data that's on the blockchain that is being fed into the blockchain is actually correct? Right? And if you look at food provenance, let me give you an example. A box of prime beef from Queensland in northern Australia makes its way to China. And somewhere along the way, the prime beef in the box is being sold separately and replaced, and so it multiplies. Or there was an example of a vitamin company. They produce, I think, 1 million bottles per year globally. And in China, 3 million bottles of their products are being sold every year. So with these issues, food provenance, medicine, etc., you have to understand that the product is genuine. Right? And so the data that is being fed into a blockchain solution has to be trustworthy as well. And so, for example, to come back to the beef example, being CSIRO, we have different divisions across different sciences and sectors. So, for example, we have an agricultural business unit, and they are looking at things like analyzing the beef and being able to tell from which pasture it came, right? On which piece of land did the cow live and feed. And if we combine that, then of course we can get a very valuable solution in total. But I agree, we by ourselves might not be able to solve the real problems for the customers or for the industry. I'm sorry, I did not fully grasp the second point.
There was the ethical perspective of these technologies. So what I was referring to when I started talking about it, I think there was this example of one company from the Silicon Valley adding facial recognition software to one of their photo products so it could recognize faces. And it turns out they trained this product only with the pictures from their employees, which were primarily Caucasian and Asian. And that led to a case where somebody with an African background was then matched to a monkey. So when we look at things like machine learning, I think we have to consider these issues, that we don't have these kinds of racial biases in the training data and in the algorithms that we produce. I don't know if that addresses the question now. Okay, right. So I have more people on the list. So Claudio was next, then Shazia, and then the lady. Look behind, there's a microphone. Just behind you, Claudio.
Okay, thanks. Right, so I had two questions, and so the first one was, okay, I like the title a lot, and about AI, machine learning, blockchain. I see them as technologies, so the aim for which they're used might vary, right? So I was, just to make an example, I was thinking, in certain cases, we like when computer-aided systems can prove more effective, more efficient, because they allow us to reduce the efforts and ultimately time, so save costs, make more money, that's the thing. But how about instead like having another viewpoint, which is not necessarily using these technologies to make things more faster, more efficient, quicker, whatever, but just to try to reduce the human risk. Like, for instance, what I'm thinking of, speaking like of recent happenings, is that I remember during Fukushima disaster, we sent human beings to check the situation. This is high risk. Maybe, in that case, the automation of this activity, I know I'm dreaming, but would have been much more effective. So I was thinking whether, rather than thinking of these techniques, eating the human factor, we can use this technique to protect the human, like just changing the direction towards we lead this. Question number one. And the second question instead is more regarding the self-adaptation of humans. So there are certain jobs that for sure are going to decrease in appeal and then eventually disappear, right? But this requires then people that were working in that area to readapt, which for us, or be, how to say, trained again to do something different. I perceive, however, a slight risk in that, meaning we all here are into computer science or related fields, and we are quite, how to say, used even to change the topics of our research continuously, But some of us, even friends, relatives, are not used to it. They can do one thing, they do it very well, and then changing could be, I mean, this is even like from business process engineering task. It could be hard to really readapt again. So what I had in mind is that looking far beyond that, couldn't there rather be the risk that having these technologies, we can even increase the gap between who can actually have this at hand and who can't? Because who can't and doesn't adapt is left behind. And isn't this risky in this case, for the human factor? Not directly, but rather for the evolution, self-evolution. Like big fish eats small fish. Thank you.
All right, so we have saving humans and potentially excluding humans. So anybody wanting to respond to that? So maybe Gero, you can start, and then we have Rick's comment.
Yeah, so let me address the saving humans question. I fully agree, right? Everything you said, totally correct. The one constraint is what is actually accepted by people, and where do they have reservation of applying that technology. I give you two examples that we were involved in and where we simply couldn't get through, although to us it was all obvious that technology would have been a better solution. One is recommendations for medical treatments, where it's proven that if you take the knowledge that is out there and you derive certain rules from it, you let machine learn certain things, that machines, in many cases, make better decisions than the doctors at hand. Yet, doctors don't accept that, and they refuse that type of technology. So adoption is, you know, at least the cases we've been involved in, has been very minimal because just of the, you know, the reservations of the different people involved and having fear of letting go of certain things. Another example, in Germany, you know, a while ago, we had a huge wave of immigrants, refugees coming to the country. And all of the asylum applications where you basically decide whether to let that person in, to grant asylum or to reject them, was completely overwhelming the authorities. More than 1 million people came. And the agencies and the processes were designed to handle 50,000 cases a year. So we went there with, you know, decision management technology and all of the good stuff that you can do with technology, and said, look, we can, you know, from 9 months cycle time of this process, we can nail it down to 2 or 3 days, right? From, you know, days of time spent on each case, we can reduce that to 1 or 2 hours, right? And we can make better decisions with the technology, and we proved that as a proof of concept, that the technology actually delivered faster, better results, unbiased, much better than the people involved, and they would have been able to minimize the backlog like immediately, right, and solve a huge problem for those people being, you know, not knowing what their future is, whether they can stay or not, and so on and so on. But there, for example, the politicians involved, they simply said, we don't trust the machines. No, we do it the same way how we did it before. Let's hire 7,000 people, right, to do the job. Did they find 7,000 people? Of course not. Did the backlogs go away? Not at all. Is it still a problem? Yes. Just reservation and people not wanting to adopt technology, right? So I think this is the biggest barrier. Maybe I'm too optimistic of what technology can do, and maybe I only see the good parts of it. But I think the bigger question or the bigger problem we have right now is that people don't adopt it fast enough.
Rick.
So I just want to respond to your second question, which was the adaptation of the workforce towards new kinds of jobs and et cetera. And I want to just make an argument for optimism. I think that there's a new say, research area that AI people could be looking at, and it would be to combine 2 existing capabilities into a third new partial solution to the problem of retraining the workforce. So the one capability is this notion of the AI-driven interaction with humans, okay? So we see chatbots, we see other kinds of conversational interfaces, we see virtual reality systems. Imagine if those things were aimed towards helping workers get into a new kind of work. Okay, so here I've got a worker, he's doing one thing, now he's put into a new kind of position. Can we